Are you tired of hoping and praying that your yearly review at work goes well and they decide to give you a little bit of a raise? Are you tired of missing holidays and special events such as birthday and Christmas with your family members and friends and loved ones because you have to go to work in order to trade some of your time to get a little bit more money? Today, we're going to be going after 10 steps to pursue entrepreneurship. So, if you find yourself in an employee role and you're looking to take a step into entrepreneurship, or you're at least curious on what that would look like, I want to reassure you, you've clicked on the right video. I've been an entrepreneur really my whole life, and yet professionally for the past 18 years. In one of my business, I've sold in volume over $62 million by helping hundreds of people and earning a tad over $2 million in commissions as a result of. And also I've built up about 6 other streams of income. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And today we're going to talk about the 10 steps you could take towards entrepreneurship. Other than the success I've had as an entrepreneur, at this point professionally, I've helped over 600 people that I bet are just like you in the employee role and looking to take a step towards being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, a independent contractor, if you will. And so today I want to let you know that there's 10 steps I've identified by looking at my own experience and consulting and coaching over 600 others. So I'm going to give you some things to consider. I'm going to share with you some perspective from my experience of what I've struggled with and I've seen so many entrepreneurs struggle with. Because I'll tell you what, I'm feeling inspired today. It's late at night where I'm at, and usually I'd be in bed by now. And yet this is something I feel some urgency with today because this week alone, I've had 3 conversations. One of them, I got a text message out of the blue where the gentleman said, "Hey, Chris, do you know of any companies looking to hire? I just got notified that I've been released to my role effective immediately without pay." And maybe you find yourself in a similar situation. And yet, maybe, just maybe with entrepreneurship, what your business looks like is not going out and swiping all the credit cards and going into debt to launch your business. Maybe it's taking the thing that you already do well, and instead of doing that for someone else, you simply do that for yourself and start earning revenue to where you buy back your time and you're more of the driving seat for your time and your finances. So here's the first step that I find when it comes to being an entrepreneur and working with so many entrepreneurs over the years is the path of entrepreneurship is going to cause you to have to gain more clarity about your life and what you truly desire on a heart level, probably more than you ever had before. So here's an exercise. I want you to grab a piece of paper right now, and I want you to write down the life that you desire. Let's just do 12 months from now. Sure, you can go out 5 or 10 years. Let's keep it super simple today and go out the next 12 months. If you could dream freely, forget about all your obligations and your commitments, and if you could just dream about what your life looks like, let's break it down into some categories. Let's start with your spiritual life. What does it look like for you to thrive when it comes to your spiritual life? What about relationships? Who are you spending your time with, and how much time are you spending with them? What kind of vacations are you going on? What are some of the things that you desire? Do you desire to relocate to a new city, to move? Maybe where you're at right now, you desire to replace your current income with monies received as a result of your own business. That's a wonderful goal and could be a great next step as well. Think about really in detail, even after our time here together is over, reflect and think about the life that you desire. Why is it important to have more clarity than you probably have right now about the life that you truly desire? Not the one that you've been told and conditioned to live, the one that you truly desire all by yourself if you were free to dream. The reason that's important is because it is challenging being an entrepreneur, right? It's like John Maxwell says, it's uphill both ways, meaning it is challenging, but rest assured that business is simple and yet not easy. If you don't have clarity, it will not push you through and cause you to do what's required on the days you do not feel like showing up. Simon Sinek says it best in his book, Start with the Why, that you want to gain clarity on the why. That's exactly what we're talking about today. In fact, I would encourage you to check out his book, Start with the Why. Here's the other thing. Step number 2 is you're going to have to immediately take extreme ownership of your life. You're going to have to start thinking like a CEO, meaning, let's define CEO, Chief Executive Owner. You get to take full responsibility for every aspect of your life because you know what? Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is there's no one to blame. In fact, it reminds me of back in 2016, I was with John Maxwell in Orlando, Florida, and several thousand people at one of his coaching and training and teaching events in Orlando. And there's really one thing that I remember from the whole event. The finances is several $1,000s I've invested into it, and really from the whole trip itself. And I want to share this with you. I'm gonna give you a gold nugget right now. It's this: the day that you start to mature and grow up is the day that you look in the mirror and you take full responsibility for every area of your life. It's about embracing a mindset that says, sure, I've experienced some challenges and yet we all go through hard things. And yet it's moving from being a victim, meaning that, sure, some things happen to me, but guess what? I trust God. That's my verbiage. I trust God that this happened for my benefit and not just to me. It's moving from a victim mentality into an empowered state where you could actually move forward and not continue the cycle of being hung up on what happened in the past. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to downplay some things that maybe have happened in your past, especially if you go back to your childhood where you had zero control over, because I know I have some of those things in my life as well. I'm not trying to discount that at all, but I'm saying that the moment that we start to mature in our life and head a more positive, productive path or move forward, make progress. That's what I was looking for. Make some forward progress is the moment we take extreme ownership of our life. You know what I did after that event? I came home and I went to Target and I went to what's that couple from Chip and Joanne, right? They have that little section in Target. And I found this brass circle mirror and I hung it behind my office door. And every time I would go in and out my office door and I would see that mirror, I would be reminded to take ownership of all areas of my life. And if there was an area of my life I was dissatisfied with the results I was currently getting, I was reminded to take it up with the man in the mirror. It reminds me of the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. It has beautiful lyrics. In fact, I would encourage you to pull that up on YouTube, especially if you never heard it, and have the audio where it shows up on the screen. It's a beautiful song. And moving into entrepreneurship, you have to take extreme ownership of your life. My first broker, I'm in real estate and have a real estate background. And the broker of the first real estate franchise I was part of, Coldwell Banker, his name was Bob Knitter, and he became like a father figure to me. And I'll remember forever that on his desk, he had a baseball. It was like a little statue of a baseball. He's a huge baseball fan. And the baseball said one thing on it. It said the person that dropped the ball is most likely the one to complain about how the ball landed. And I remember every time I would walk into his office and maybe there was something going sideways on a deal or something in a contract that was off, that would just be my reminder of, am I trying to pass blame to someone else and shift the focus on what I can't control, which is the choices and decisions from someone else? Or am I willing to take responsibility for how the ball dropped, how the circumstances are going, and say, you know what? It is what it is, but I'm going to choose to be a problem solver and find a way to move forward. So the first step to recap is going to be gain more clarity, because clarity is power. In fact, a confused mind takes no action. So if you stay in a state where being overwhelmed and watching the news and all of the horror stories about things going on in the world, what that will actually do is it'll rob you of the energy and the clarity required to solve the problems going on in your own world. Think about it. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what control do you have over the challenges and situations going on with the economy and across the world? God doesn't give us, usually, generally speaking, doesn't give us the bandwidth and the energy to solve problems clear across the world with people I don't know. And yet we could trust him that he will give us the energy, the strength, the wisdom, the clarity needed to solve the problems going on in our own world. And step number two is the CEO, the chief executive owner of your life. And one of the things that I wrote a book, and there's something I'm reminded of that I would like to share with you, because sometimes if we're considering a new venture in life, if we're considering making a significant change, right? I'm 42 years of age here shortly. And the reason I bring up my age is because I wonder if you're like me, where you feel the weight, the sense of responsibility, because the decisions that maybe you're making for yourself right now aren't just decisions that impact you. They impact your loved ones, your family that's counting on you. And one of the things that I found, especially when the pressure's on, is I'm reminded I am a person of faith, right? I believe I'm a follower of Jesus, and I believe in the Bible, and I take principles from the Bible and do what I can to apply them as much as I can to my life. And I'm reminded of the word submit. It means come under the authority of. And so I think one of the best things that you can do if you feel like you're at a crossroads and you're not sure what to do next is to submit yourself to God, meaning this is what it looks like. This is my language. I'll give you an example. God, you're God. I'm not. I'm not in control. You are. I trust you, God. I'll follow you. Show me the next step to take. Rarely does God lay out the full blueprint of our life, but oftentimes he gives us clarity. I would say all the time, if we pay attention, he will give us clarity for the next step to take. Step number three is this. I wonder if I'm going to read it. I took some notes here on my phone. Define your business. Now, I know if you don't have a business, you're like, Chris, what do you mean define my business? I don't have a business. Well, I want you to consider, if you did have a business, what would your business be? I'm going to give you an example. My dad would come down from Toronto, Canada, and stay at his brother, my uncle Sean's house. And both of them were in the same industry. My dad was self-employed and had a business helping people fix their commercial doors and windows. And his brother, my uncle, was in the same exact industry. There we go. And every time my dad came down here, he would always talk to my uncle Sean and say, Sean, why don't you start your business? I'll help you with it. Stop working for that person. I'll help you. You'll make more money. You'll get more time. And year after year, my dad was always talking to his brother about going into business, telling my uncle, hey, the thing that you're doing, stop doing that for them and start doing it for yourself in order to maximize your opportunity. And so the reason I bring up that story is I wonder what it is that you're already an expert at. I wonder what it is that you already have been doing year after year, and you probably do it so well. There may be a temptation because it feels so familiar to discredit and say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Well, I want to let you know the skill set that you offer, the skill set that you have, that you've built by being diligent year after year. I want to tell you it's valuable. That could actually be the key that unlocks the success you desire. Meaning, what if that thing that you do well, instead of doing that for them, what if you start doing it for yourself? Oftentimes, when people take a step to be self-employed, to launch their business, move into entrepreneurship, they're doing that thing for themselves. And I'm curious, when you're tuning into this, mention in the comments or send me a message. What is that skill that you have? I love these conversations. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, Chris Ward Legacy, that's my symbol for Instagram. I'll put it in the comments, actually. Send me a message. All the time I find myself going back and forth with people that are interested in business ideas. I'm here for you. Count me as a resource. I love talking business. I love dreaming and helping people figure out what it is that's in their heart to pursue in the business that they may already have access to. Oftentimes when it comes to, when I say the word access, I'm reminded that sometimes it feels like we lack resources, meaning we look at our bank account, we look at our calendar, we look at what we have, and there's a temptation to think, what you have is not enough. And I want to let you know that I don't believe that you lack resources, but you may lack resourcefulness. I believe that you're already connected to so many resources, and that if you don't see them clearly within your own household, I bet you have access within the community, the relationships that you know. And so I wonder what that skill set that you already have is. Maybe you're incredibly good with people. Maybe you're in HR, maybe you have a customer service background, maybe you've been in the restaurant industry or the medical field and you're so used to serving others. Maybe you could consider consulting. Like, what would it look like to get into being a coach and consultant? There's all kinds of coaching going on. And I'll tell you what, a great coach can change a life. And so maybe the thing that you do after this video is you search, or you send me a message and say, "Hey, Chris, tell me more about coaching and consulting." That's one of those things that I've done for offices in the past, and I've made moves intentionally over the years to maximize that opportunity and do independent coaching and consulting myself. So that's an area that, I'm here for you when it comes to that one. Maybe you're a service provider, maybe you're a locksmith, maybe you're a plumber, maybe you have a job like that, a garage door business, maybe you're a teacher. What if you take those skills and you start a YouTube channel and you start creating content and creating courses in order to help people? I know I'm just throwing ideas out there. And so I just mentioned that a confused mind takes no action. My intention is not to confuse you, but my intention is to inspire you to think about that skill set that you have and start thinking about the possibilities of what you could do that in order to help more people and take a step towards entrepreneurship in order to start generating more revenue in your world. One of the questions people often ask me is, Chris, how do I know when I should quit my job, my 9 to 5, and go all in on this business that I have? I'm going to circle back to that here a little bit later. So put a pin in that. Okay, so define your business, start thinking about your skill and turn your skill into an offer. Send me a message if you want to discuss that more. I'd be glad to talk through that with you. Okay, step number 4 is to think about lead generation. It doesn't matter how great you are at what you do. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether you have a product-based business or you have a service-based business or industry that you're in. Without leads, none of it matters. Leads rank right up there with oxygen. You have to have them. Without leads, you have no business. And so here's some things I wrote down. Just being on your phone more will not make him say that again. Just being on your phone more or sitting in front of your computer more or sitting in an office more will not make you more money. Just throwing up a Facebook post randomly or starting a business page on Facebook, I promise, will not make you more money. Having a fancy website and getting that dialed in, I'm not sure if people go to websites anymore. Maybe they go to landing pages. And yet, I promise you, having a state-of-the-art website will not make you more money. You know what will make you more money? Having leads in your business. I wrote this down. Your phone will not make you money, but conversations with people will. Conversations with people will. And when it comes to generating leads, fundamentally, there's really 2 aspects of lead generation. There's prospecting and marketing. I'm going to touch on the differences. Think of prospecting. Here's the benefits of prospecting. Prospecting, it requires your time, meaning it's time intensive, and it requires you. It's a proactive approach to go find people. My first broker, Bob Knitter, he told me, "Hey, Chris, you need to go out and you need to knock on doors. You need to meet people." Hang with me. I'm not saying you need to start knocking on doors. So don't let me lose you right there. His point was valid. His point was, Chris, people are not going to come in here to meet you. You need to go out and meet them. So I wonder what you can do once you clarify what business, what's the service that you could provide? Because that's really the context for today. I should have said that in the beginning, that the context is really going to be a service-based business. That's my area of expertise. So once you identify what that service is that you can do to help people, you want to figure out how can you start getting in front of people. There's prospecting. That's where we use our time in order to track down and uncover and discover leads. And then there's marketing. Think of marketing is marketing works when you're not, meaning that you could trade your dollars in order to buy back your time and have leverage, meaning that you have ads going up, you may have billboards, print material. There's all kinds of marketing we could do these days with Google, um, SEO ads, those types of things, Google, Facebook, Instagram, all these places that we could have ads. So prospecting, that's where you're proactively going after generating leads, client acquisition. And then marketing, that's where you're trading once you have revenue coming into your business, you could start holding your dollars accountable and making sure that if you choose to invest them in some type of marketing, you're getting a good return on your investment. A best practice is a 3-to-1 investment. If they could show you that you can make $3 for every one they give you, that's math that should get your attention. Also, it's when it comes to finding opportunities, it's about trust. It's a People do business with people they like, know, and trust, or people that they want to be like. Tony Robbins, he's been talking a lot about AI this week. I've been tuning into that, which has been great. But he talks about building rapport. This is that human connection. You ever met somebody and you're like, man, there's just something about them that I like. You can't put your finger on it, but there's just something there that you like them. And then maybe it's the other side of the coin, right? You meet somebody and you're like, I don't know what it is, but I just don't trust that person. That's what I'm talking about. Building rapport. It means trust. Fundamentally, people do business with a trust. So I wonder, like, what's your vibe? What's the energy that you're putting off? Do you leave a good first impression? I wonder what it is that if there's an area for you to become more intentional about the impressions that you put off. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that I've learned over the years is to stay in a state of curiosity, meaning that sure, I naturally want to talk and share stories and talk about myself and all of that, as most of us do, that people connect with people that take an interest in them, especially if we're going from somebody that we haven't met before to building a relationship with really a stranger. If we will take an interest, there's a simple framework that's easy to remember, right? So it's forward: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Family, recreation, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. Family, that's questions like this. Hey, tell me about your family. And then see what they say. Right? Do they mention, do they have kids? What's their household dynamic look like? It's questions around that. Occupation, that's going to be like, what's the work that they're passionate about? What do they do for a living? What's their area of expertise? How long have they been doing that? What do they enjoy the most about that? What's the thing that they do in that role that they excel at? If they had a Superman power, what would that be? Those types of questions. So we had family, occupation, recreation. That's going to be what they enjoy doing. Think of vacations, future type of things. What is it that excites them? Their hobbies, their activities. What do they like to do in their spare time and time of leisure? Are they in golf, hunting, fishing? What is it for them? And then the last one is dreams. That's not like the creepy, hey, what'd you dream last night? That's talking about future ambitions. Hey, when you think of next year, what excites you the most? What are you the most looking forward to? Those types of conversations. And what I've discovered is that usually in one of those 4 key areas of their life, you'll hit a passion button, meaning that there's one, you could just see their face start to change and they light up and they're enthusiastic about that. So when it comes to lead generation, one of the keys to lead generation is building relationships with people. Usually I find in working with people that have a business is they usually already have enough relationship to achieve the desired goal they have financially in their business, or they don't, right? They're either in one or two positions. They already know enough people in order to hit their goal financially, or they need to start meeting some people to strengthen and build the relationships. One of the things that I hired a coach, shout out to Omar El-Takori. I recorded a podcast episode with him. Uh, if, it was actually last month or so. So make sure to check that out. And I was up in Omaha with my son, Matthew, who's 14, with some businessmen, including him. Great episode. And he's my coach. That's why I bring him up. What kind of coach is he, Chris? He's my personal brand coach. What's personal brand? Personal brand is a story that comes to mind when people see your name or they think of you. So, what comes to people's mind when they think of you? Matter of fact, I would encourage you on social media. What if you just ask that question? Hey, when you think of me, what comes to mind? And that may give you some insight of what people think, because there's the perception that we have of ourselves. And then each person has a perception of us. And they may also help you get dialed into like the thing that you do exceptionally well that you might be able to monetize to start generating revenue, whether it's a side hustle or something that you start to take on that occupies potentially more of your time in the future. So with personal brand, one of the things that, I mean, it's the reason I'm here today, right? I'm fascinated with the reality that we live in a day and age where this video, I mean, it's an asset. It stays out there and potentially could be a blessing and add value to thousands, maybe even millions of people if you subscribe and share, right? Shameless plug. It, point is that it could impact so many people across the world potentially. So what if a strategy that you implement is that thing that you do exceptionally well? Maybe you're an incredible stay-at-home mom. Maybe you are into arts and crafts. It's fascinating. My coach was one of my mentors, actually, was talking about how sometimes, for example, he mentioned some people say, well, I don't know what kind of business I could have. I just like to talk all the time. Nobody would ever pay me to talk. And then he goes on to share, it's actually a mentor, Myron Golden, who shares this, popped in my mind. He says, you can't tell me you can't get paid to talk and have conversations with people and ask them questions. What about Oprah Winfrey? She's the only person that owns a letter of the alphabet, right? Or what about somebody that says that, hey, I don't know if I could get paid for it. I mean, I just like to bake and cook. And he's like, what about Rachel Ray? She's a multi-millionaire. Oprah is a billionaire with the B. And then he just goes on to share these skills that these people have that they've really have changed the trajectory of their life with. And yet the temptation, as I said earlier, is just called ordinary because it's so familiar. So what if you did the thing that you already do so well, but you just do like I'm doing here? You turn that camera on and you start telling people about your recipes and how you interview people and talk to people and about your chickens that you have or the farm that you're into or working on cars or whatever it is. What if you start talking to the world on YouTube about the thing that you're most passionate about? By the way, here's a pro tip. I had to pay thousands of dollars this one. I'll give it to you complimentary today. That one of the strategies that I've learned to implement with podcast is long format, meaning anything over 8 minutes and 8 minutes. And YouTube, from what I understand, prioritizes long form format, which is why I'm here on live just talking to you about some thoughts that I have from conversations I've had this week. Okay, number 6. So recap. Number 4 was going to be the importance of lead generating and creating opportunities to build trust and to take your skill set and get in front of a camera and start talking to the world. Step number 5 is this: follow up. So with the people, once you identify a skill set and you figure out a dollar amount in order to charge somebody for your services that you're going to provide, here's an idea. Maybe you like taking photos. So you're into family photos or taking landscaping photos. What if you just start? What if you throw up something on Facebook? Don't throw up on Facebook, but you put a post up on Facebook and you say, hey, I'm running a special this week. I'm doing 5 edited photos in 15-minute mini sessions for $100. And I have 10 slots this week available. Hey, guess what? You don't have to quit your job in order to do that. And congratulations. If you're doing 10 slots at $100, that's $1,000 in extra income you just generated. And if each spot is 15 minutes, well, let's see, 4, 8, 12. That's less than 3 hours of work for $1,000 bucks. That might not be bad math for you. Okay, step number 6 is going to be, what step are we on here? We're on step number 5, the follow up. Follow up is important. The fortune is in the follow up. Chris, what do you mean by that? Here's what I mean is that it's not too uncommon that if you present some type of opportunity to help somebody with some type of problem you solve, the value you bring to them in exchange for some type of compensation, it's not too often for people to not be ready right in that moment. And so it's going to be important that maybe you pull out a piece of paper or you use a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet. Point is you're going to want to have a plan to follow up with people. Say you have 10 people interested in your photography business, but 5 of them are busy this week. Well, you don't just want to let those people, you don't want to just forget about them. It's important to be a good steward, right? The Bible says the person that's trusted with little could be trusted with much. So, what if instead of just looking for low hanging fruit, the people that are just ready, willing, and able to do business with you right now, what if you actually create a plan to stay in touch with those people systematically? By the way, you could also collect referrals from those folks in the meantime. Point is, have a plan to stay in touch with people once they start asking you questions and they raise your hand. They raise not your hand, but their hand saying, "Hey, I'm interested." Once people self select in by saying, "Hey, let me ask you a question about that," they're asking a question for a reason. There's a certain level of interest there, and they may not be ready today, but it's okay. That could be future business for you, whether it's next week, next month, a few months from now. You don't want to lose track of those people, is my point. Step number 7 that you need to consider is you're going to want to build your database. Earlier, I mentioned that you already may know enough people to start a business or not. If you don't, you're going to need to start making some new friends, meeting some new people. When it comes to a database, here's what I mean by database. Your database is your business. Chris, what's a database? I'm glad you asked. A database, imagine it's a list of people that you know. Think of names, phone numbers, email address. It's a list of people that you're already in relationship with. And if your database is your business, let's think about the opposite of that. If your database is your business and you don't have a database, that means you have no business. So it's time to establish your database. So whether there's a young man that I've been doing a book study with for a while now, and he's a mechanic by trade. He's about 20 years 20 years of age, and he has this vision that he and I've been talking about for a while of having a mobile mechanic service. And so one of the things I've been talking to him about is like, hey, how can you be intentional to let the people, your sphere of influence, the people that already like, know, and trust you? By the way, the best people to do business with, family members and friends. What a great place to start. What if you just became the trusted professional in that area? You're an expert with your family members and friends. That's a great place to start. By the way, let's do some math here. According to Google, most people on average know between like 100 and 400 people, but it's a little late in the day. So give me a break. Let's do some easy math. Let's say you know 100 people, but those 100 people, they know other people. Let's keep it easy math. Let's only assume they know 100 people. 100 people you know, 100 people, each one of those 100 people knows. That's 10,000 people. So do you realize by having a network of just 100 people, that actually gives you access to 10,000 people? So the point is when you have a database and you're intentional about systematically communicating with those people and letting them know what you could do to serve them and help them. And by the way, you're never too busy for their referrals. And then you follow through on your word. You're a promise keeper and you do what you do so well that not only do you keep your word, you you follow through and do what you say when you're going to say it. That's one of those things in business where it's like, Chris, tell me a secret in business. Yeah, be a promise keeper, right? It's simple and yet not easy. There's a temptation in entrepreneurship to overpromise and underdeliver. True story. One of the first people that I went in business with, it was my best friend. And I hired him on a team I established in the office. And I kept getting word that over promising, under delivering. And I built a business on reputation of taking care of my people and doing business with them and their family and friends. So it's something I take very seriously. And after a few conversations, I end up having to help him find the next opportunity for him because he didn't keep his promise. Now it's when you're doing so much business, it could be a challenge to keep track with everything. So I get that. The point is I promise you, one of the ways that you could stand out being an entrepreneur is by simply keeping your promise. Here's the thing, the skill that you already have, that thing that you decide to provide to others in exchange for essentially um, finances, revenue, right? You could be the best kept secret, meaning you could be so good at what you do. And yet, if nobody knows that you're there to help them and nobody knows that you're actively looking to grow that business and take care of them and people they may know, you're not going to win in entrepreneurship and be a best kept secret. One of the things that reminds me that for 7 years, when I launched my real estate business back in 2007, by the way, did you know? Not sure of your age and your experience in life and business, but if you were around back in 2007, think about what was going on in the United States in 2007. Remember the Great Recession that was created? The housing market fell, prices were cut in half, builders were going to jail and going bankrupt, and foreclosure properties at record highs, all of that going on. It was a mess. And yet I launched my business in 2007. I didn't do that strategically, to be honest with you. Ignorance is bliss. I had no clue what I was getting into, but I could tell you this. I was 22. We just had our first daughter, Shaylee, who's now 20. I was 22 years of age. I had dreams and ambitions of not having financial limitations based on how many hours I work and putting in time and hopefully getting promoted over time. That felt so far out of my control. It just never really set that right with me. It didn't feel good on the inside. I wanted more. And so we had our first child. I launched my real estate business in 2007. Within the first 12 months, I more than doubled the finances that my household and I were used to. Now, unfortunately, I was extremely financial irresponsibility. I went out and spent most of my money. Terrible situation. I didn't pay my taxes for the first 3 years. I really created a big mess for my family and learned some lessons the hard way. By the way, when it comes to entrepreneurship, um, it's different being an entrepreneur versus, a 1099 independent contractor versus a W-2 employee. On many levels, it's different. So one of the things I want to say right now is it's going to be important that you talk to your CPA, talk to a tax specialist or a financial planner and get a strategy. Let them know what your goal is and what you're looking to do. That way you could be proactive and have a plan going into it. I'm not a tax advisor, so that's not my area of expertise. Can't help you out on that one, but find a professional. They can help you navigate that. That's an important one. So with real estate, I started my business in a time when the office I was in, without exaggeration, what the agent count was being cut in half. In the Kansas City area in real estate, we went from about 9,000 agents in about a three-year period, went down to 4,500 agents. People were leaving the business. Some of the best times to launch a business is going to be when everybody else is leaving. So if you think about like what's going on in the world right now, there is a level of chaos. 3 people this week, as I said earlier, told me, Chris, I've been let go and without further notice, without pay. What do you think I should do? Like, that's real life. Life is happening. Life has a way of happening. And maybe that's where you find yourself at. So what if this isn't happening to you? What if it's happening for you? What if it's what I shared with a gentleman earlier this week? What if this is a way to launch into that business that you've always dreamt about. Now may be the time. And if you've listened this long, I would say there's a high chance that that may be a timely word for you. You have to pray and figure that out though. So I launched my business in 2007. I get my first business coach, Rick DeLuca, God bless him. Love that guy and still talk to him all these years later. At 2000, end of 2015, I get my first business coach. The truth is even though I had a great amount of success within the first 12 months of my business, I really hit my head against the wall year after year for the next 7 years, from 2015 all the way to, I'm sorry, from 2007 all the way to 2015. I was really stuck. You know what my strategy was? And this is one of those shifts that you're going to have to make to move from an employee mindset to more of an entrepreneur mindset. My strategy was this: work hard, which is not a bad strategy if effort is the issue. But if you're working hard on things that are not working, it would be ignorant to work harder at those things. You with me on that? So my strategy was work harder, which I equated to work 24/7. I remember I wrote on a piece of blank paper because I felt like, man, I need to write down some goals or something. I pulled out a piece of paper from the printer and I wrote down where I wanted to be in 5 years. You know, the goal that I had in 5 years was to take one day off a week. How sad is that with a young family that loved me and wanted to be around me? One day off a week in 5 years from now, I worked 24/7. Now I did sleep, obviously. My point is that I would stay out, I would leave way early and I'd come home way late. And I thought that was required in order to have success in business. That's not true. Um, don't mistake movement for achievement. Just because you're burning the candle at both ends and you're cranking out all kinds of hours, that does not mean that you're going to make any money being an entrepreneur. Because if you're focusing on doing the wrong activities, you're not going to make any income. So if I just want to warn you that of it in advance. So I don't want to leave you hanging with the story with Rick DeLuca. There's one thing that he did that was incredibly helpful for me that really changed the game for me. It was this. Rick said, "Hey, Chris, tell me about your hours of operation." I'm like, "What do you mean, Rick? Like, you know, the industry I'm in. Like, I'm on call. I stay by my phone. And if somebody needs me and wants to meet, I go meet with them. What do you mean? Tell me about my hours of operation." He goes, "Chris, I know you like coffee." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Just imagine Starbucks. You pull up to the window, you pull up to the parking lot, you walk in. What's on the door before you walk in? The schedule." Okay. He goes, "I want you to spend this next week," because we worked together for 12 weeks and we had phone calls together. He goes, "Over this next week, I want you to think about if you were like any other business and you were free to choose your hours of operation, what would that be?" And do you know that year, immediately I made a change, which is unheard of in my industry. I started working about 8 to 5 o'clock, 8:30 to 5 o'clock year after year. And it's been that way that was 2015. So it's been a decade, 10 years. That's been my cadence with weekends off. Sunday, my family and I go to church. I have my schedule in a way that's non-negotiable. Now, sure, once in a while, an out of town client 2, 3 times a year tops comes in where there's no other way. And so I might carve out some time during, a 1 hour window or something like that on an evening and once a year, maybe on a Saturday, but rarely does that happen. By the way, I'm reminded, my grandparents raised my brother and I through high school. And my grandma would always watch Oprah when Dr. Phil was on the show with her back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And Dr. Phil says, you teach people how to treat you. So you teach people how to treat you. The reason that's important in entrepreneurship is because you're going to teach people how to treat you. So what are the standards that you're going to lay up front, the expectations that you're going to set with your people, depending on what your business looks like for your hours of operation, right? We live in a day and age where people want a quick response, right? They want everything right now. Well, that's fine. But I'll tell you this, one of the things that I wish I would have known a decade ago, because I remember being afraid to make that move. What was I afraid of? My mindset was more of a lack mindset, meaning that I was afraid I was going to miss out on business if I didn't jump on it immediately. Oh my gosh, there's so many other people I take care of them. I don't want to miss out. That's a place of fear and doubt, right? And so now the people that I work with, one of the things I've heard on repeat year after year, Chris, I love that you're a family man. I love that you're a person of faith and that you prioritize your family and your faith. I'm so glad that you take Sundays off. I'm so glad that you choose to be home at 5. And it's gotten to a point where if somebody calls me, even if they leave a voicemail, they'll even on my voicemail, it says, "Hey, if it's after this is Chris. Thanks. I apologize for missing your call. Please leave me a detailed message and I'll be sure to get back with you. If it's after 5 p.m., I'll call you back next business day. Thank you so much. Bye." Like that's the expectation, even on my voicemail. And I even have it, close that loop, close this other one. I even have it to where people apologize, like, "Oh, Chris, I called you after hours. I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "I appreciate you calling." You like, the point is that people actually, little did I know, people would actually respect me as a result of having clear boundaries up front. So I want you to think through that. What's that going to look like for you? Uh, Case study time. There's a gentleman that I go to church with, and I'll leave his name out of it. And in a men's group Bible study, I stood up and I shared about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 4 quadrants. He lays it out. By the way, great book. It's on my bookshelf. He has a version for teenagers. And I bribed my kids several years ago when they were in their early teenage years to write me a book report on that one. And I'm so glad I did. Robert Kiyosaki in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talks about the 4 quadrants, the upper left-hand quadrant. So just imagine this with me. I wish I had a whiteboard. Upper left-hand quadrant, he draws an E. And that stands for employee. That's where you trade your time in order to make money. Okay. Then underneath that box and the one right under it, he has SE, self-employed. By the way, most of what we talked about today is moving from entrepreneur, I'm sorry, moving from employee to self-employed. But he talks about, then he draws a line right down the middle of this box with these 4 little quadrants. And he talks about prioritizing the right-hand side of the 4 quadrant. On the right hand of the 4 quadrants, you have um, business owner, right? And he has a pretty high standard of business owner. It's something like if you have, if you can go out of the country for a year and come back and your business is more profitable than ever because your team is crushing it. Point is business owner. And then he says the most powerful quadrant to be in is the investor. That's where you have your money making money for you. Where am I at here? I'm looking at my notes. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 4 quadrants. That was not my notes. That was bonus material. The next step, is there anything that I want to add? Okay, so set time boundaries, build a database, have a plan to communicate with them, let them know that you're there to serve them and help them. So step number 8, we're almost there. Step number 8 is excuse me, it's getting late. Client fulfillment. So you have the aspect of obtaining clients through lead generation. Well, it's going to be essential that not only do you acquire them up front, but you want to keep that client. You want to stay in a relationship and make sure they have a good client experience. It's the fulfillment, right? So if you're launching a coaching and consulting business, you want to not only win them up front, you want to set such clear expectation and you want to help them get wins. Like the quicker we can help people get wins, the better. And there's momentum that happens when people get a win underneath their belt. And I was coaching and consulting for a real estate office. It's one of the largest offices in Kansas City, about 600 people there. And I was part of the team that took the initiative a few years ago. It was actually during 2020 to build the coaching for the office. And we had some teamwork going on where I identified other people that had a heart to coach, and I wasn't doing it all myself. And yet it's when we're coaching people, especially, we want to have good follow through on what people are hiring us for. And that's fulfillment. That's how we build a referral based business. That's been my approach. is, by the way, it's the way to maximize. Let me ask you this. Would you rather work with people that you already know, or would you rather work with complete strangers? That might be a loaded question. You might have some people in your network where it's like, Chris, I don't want to work with them. You know, one of the great things about being an entrepreneur is that you could work with whoever you choose. You don't have to work with everybody. What a blessing that is. And also some people are like, Chris, I don't want to work with my family. Like, I don't want to mix business and my family. And I just say, well, number one, these days I'll just challenge them, because what a blessing you could be to those in your family. And I believe part of God's plan and original intention is that we would serve those in our family. So maybe some of your best business partners are right there in your own household, or right in your own family tree. Some of the people that I love doing business with are my family members. I take care of them and their real estate needs and their people. I've done some flipping of real estate, investing with my father-in-law, my uncle and his wife. In my opinion, family members are some of the best people to partner with and to build a legacy together. So I want you to consider the client fulfillment. Um, I have two tips on that one. Number one, have a written expectation. By the way, it's easy to have written expectation these days because you don't have to create it your own. Pull up Chat GPT and say, so for example, say you're going to consult somebody. So say you make a course that's 10 weeks, and you say, hey, Chat GPT, I'm going to consult this person as a business coach for the next 10 weeks. This person is desires to increase their revenue by 10% and make a new hire for their administrative team. Break that out over 10 weeks and help me have a step-by-step plan. And boom, Chat GPT will create that plan for you. You no longer have to spend hour after hour figuring that out on yourself, or figuring that out yourself. Leverage technology. Have the expectation in writing. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Yes, I know some people are old school and want to do handshakes. That's fine, but it's a recipe for disaster. You want to have clear written expectation, get it signed, both parties get a copy. Boom, there it is. Clear expectations. Step number 8 is staying in touch. So it's client acquisition, right? Then you have the follow up, you have the fulfillment, and then you have the stay in touch. How long do you stay in touch? You stay in touch forever and ever. Like, why would you stop staying in touch? Those become, once you have a satisfied customer, now you have what we call a client for life. There's something we talk about in the real estate world. It's called the real value of a relationship. Some people are like, oh, I just saw this news article came out that the average home buyer is older than ever. They're 40 years of age now. That's gone up. That's increased. And then also the amount of time that people own a home, I believe it's up to 11 years now before they make a move. So what's my point? If people only move 11 years, what about that network of the 10,000 other people? There's people buying and selling and doing business, even though it may not be the person who's actually listed in your database. By the way, with your database, I could have said this earlier, get your database to 100 people ASAP. Identify your top 10 people, your advocates. Your advocates are going to be your raving fans. These may be family members or friends. These are people that trust you. And if somebody says, hey, I need my garage door fixed, and you're the garage door guy, they're tagging you on Facebook, they're connecting you in three-way text. Like, these are your people. These are your core advocates, your raving fans. By the way, it may be a great idea to take those people out to lunch, to pick them up movie tickets, occasionally give them some VIP treatment, because they're taking care of you and you want to take care of them, right? Think about airlines. What do they have? Like, think about people that fly, okay, first class, right? They get, people that fly first class, they get VIP services, meaning they don't sit where everybody else sits. They get to go behind into the what's it called? Where it's getting late. I'm getting delirious at this point. They get to go sit in the, where they have food and all of the nice amenities and stuff. So point is, think about how can you create a VIP experience for your VIP people, something to think through. So you want to cultivate and stay in touch with people. How do you stay in touch with people? I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's the conversation. Susan Scott in her book, Fierce Conversations, there's really about one thing I remember from that book, and it says this: the conversation is the relationship. Well, there's two things I remember. Then she says that the conversation that you don't want to have is probably the conversation that you need to have the most. So back to the first point, that the conversation is a relationship. One of the most effective things that's minimal cost other than your time is going to be picking up the phone and calling your people and seeing how they're doing. What if you use that Ford acronym? If it's weird for you to call people, which I totally get, like, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call and make the call all about them. Let them know that you appreciate them, come from gratitude. People appreciate that. By the way, the statistic is USA Today came out with a headline. It was last year, maybe the year before at this point. And it said something like, Americans are now more depressed than ever, even though they're the richest country in the world. How in the world can that be possible? It's interesting to think about. My point in bringing that up is that you realize that if you will take the initiative to pick up the phone and call and check on your people, there's a high likelihood that they're at home by themselves, feeling lonely, and they could even be depressed. What if you're the person that changes the trajectory of their day because you've thought about them? Not only did you think about them, you picked up the phone and say, hey, I thought of you and wanted to call and see how you're doing. And also, don't be afraid to ask for referrals. If you ask people, hey, will you help? There's something I could use some help with. Will you help me? I find that people appreciate that and they actually lean into that and they will want to help you. So let people know, hey, I'm launching my business. This is what I'm working on. Do you happen to know of anybody that could use my services? Or will you keep me in mind and let me know when you come across somebody that could use those services? It's amazing how many connections people will make if we stop expecting them to read our mind and actually ask for their help. So step number 8 is going to be continue to stay in touch even after the transaction, even after they do business with you. Step number 10, and we got 2 more. By the way, I haven't forgot about the question I promised in the beginning of how do I know when I should quit my job? I'm going to answer that after these next 2 steps. So step number 9 is this: leadership and leverage. Build beyond yourself. You can't scale what you don't put in a system. And there's I'm not going to break down this in today's video. Maybe this will be another video. I wrote down 3 levels of leverage. It's system, people, and purpose. I want to let you know that it's going to be important that you start to, if you're launching a business, I want you to start thinking about, and I know this could be kind of a further out there thought, but I want it to be top of mind for you. I want you to start thinking about, if I were going to hire somebody in the future, who would I be looking for? What would their personality be like? What would be that skill that I would be hiring for? Because what you want to do is you want to start building a pipeline where you have like a list of people that caught your eye that you could see potentially going in business with, creating opportunities for. In my opinion, it's never too early to start thinking about that. I mean, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And it's not too uncommon that the first hire that a lot of businesses, by the way, the trend, I just saw this in a YouTube video, the current trend is small teams. You could have a small team that's highly profitable. So for me, I have a few things going on. But what I've done is I've gotten administrative help. I actually have a lady named Bree who's incredible, and she has some administrative gifting. So she helps me stay organized from a paperwork standpoint and helps me stay systematic in that. So I could focus on lead generation because I'm good at networking with people and client acquisition. That's a strength of mine. So she gets to do what she loves. I get to do what I love. And the thing is she's not an employee of mine. Your first hire may not be an employee. And I know we're kind of going, and we're getting a little deep if we're going from employee to entrepreneur, launching your business or side hustle. And now we're talking about hiring an employee. Actually, I'm not talking about a hiring employee. That's my point. She's actually an independent contractor. So it's a cost of sell, meaning that she only gets compensated when the business does business. She gets paid a bonus, if you will, per deal that's done. Now, my daughter, I got her on a different plan. So for my daughter, I have her set up on a more steady pay because there's steady things that she does for me that's not directly tied to doing business. Like when it comes to podcasts and uploading to YouTube and those things, like she gets that done for me. She's great at it, right? She makes sure that everything goes in all the right places in a timely manner. Point is be thinking about who it is you would choose to hire. Maybe it's your own children. For years, my kids would uh, put fill envelopes for me and fold things as far as papers. And I mean, ever since they were 5 or 6 years old, they've been working in the business, helping me deliver client gifts and those types of things. Don't be afraid, or it's not a matter of being afraid. I would say I would encourage you to think about your children and how can you, if you have children and even family members, how can you include them into your business? Those may be some of your best business partners. One of them may be your first hire. Okay, so build beyond yourself, be thinking about that. Step number 10 is this. It is legacy and lifestyle. I'm reminded that the purpose of business is to fund your life. I'm going to say that again. The purpose of your business is not only to fund your life, but to fund your life and your purpose. So there's the lifestyle factor, right? The cool thing about business is you get to do the math. You get to think about where you want to live, what kind of car you want to drive, what kind of hobbies you have, what kind of dinners you're going out to, what kind of things you enjoy doing, what kind of items do you like to purchase. You get to think about all those things. What charitable contributions do you would you like to make? By the way, one of the things that I've been focused on this week is somebody that I know well. She figured out that there's needs in our community that of right now. There's people that because of some things going on that they don't have control over, they're going out with food, and it's not even what gets my heart is the kids going out with food. You know that breaks my heart. That's not a win. And so I saw on social media, she said, working on getting 150 families or 150 bags of groceries for families. So I thought about that and I'm like, man, you ever have it to where you just think about it and you just keep thinking about it? Maybe that's why you're watching this video. That's where you're at with being an employee considering entrepreneurship. Keep thinking about it. So I kept thinking about that and I reached out to her and I said, hey, what's the goal? Where are we at? And I said, I'm in. You know what I did? That same database of people that's been helping my family and I for all these years, I reached out to them. And do you know, within a 72-hour period between my Bible study group that meets on Wednesdays, and I sent out 2 emails and 2 Facebook posts, and in less than 72 hours, a little over $1,000 came in for groceries. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because when it comes to being a business owner with your network of people, I wonder it is what you're passionate about. Is it kids? Is it people across the world? Maybe it's animals. I don't know what you're into. Maybe there's something that your heart breaks for. Well, what if the relationships that not only help you in your business, what if you could rally together with those people and actually you can make some contributions to the causes and organizations that you care about. The reason I bring that up is because there's the lifestyle factor and then there's the contribution to society factor where you get like, what would it look like for you to become the most generous person in your church? I mean, it's possible. The cool thing about entrepreneurship is you get to dream, you get to calculate the cost, and then you get to back into that, meaning you figure out what the dollar amount is, and then you figure out with your clients, I mean, you figure out the finances, like what's your average profit per client, right? And say your goal is to make $1 million and your average client is $10,000. Well, no, now you know that you need to make, point is you could do the math on that one. You get to design your life. I use the word legacy. I have a mentor of mine, shout out to Brian. And um, when it comes to legacy, he teaches legacy. I have a podcast episode with Brian. It has the word legacy in it. So if you want to check that out, I recommend it. Like when it comes to legacy, that's going to be the impact that you have long after you're gone, meaning you're no longer here on this earth. You've moved on. And now the people that you've All of us impact people, right? I would say all of us leave a legacy. And yet the question is not if we're leaving one or not, are we being intentional with the legacy that we're choosing to leave? How are we impacting the people that we come in contact with? What are the people going to say long after we're gone? What are the values, the standards? What is it that we represent? What do we leave people with when we're not here? What do we leave in them and with them? So the cool thing about business is not only do you get to dream about your life right now and a year from now, heck, you could go all the way to the end of the road for you, and you could dream of the impact that you want to have within your family tree and your household and your community, and maybe even across the world if you choose. Because with entrepreneurship and business, it funds your life, it funds your legacy, and I believe it could also fund your purpose. So at this point, I'm going to do a quick recap, make sure I didn't miss anything. The first step is going to be gaining clarity, more clarity than ever. Step number 2 is going to be it's time to go to the next level in leading yourself and being the CEO of your life, chief executive owner, meaning taking full responsibility. The third step is think about your skill set, the thing that you do well, and figure out like how can you monetize that? Send me a DM if that's something you want to talk about. That's an area I'm good at helping navigate. And oh, I need to close the loop. I shared about the gentleman I go to church with, Drew. I want to share that story with you. That's a great way to finish. So Drew is a gentleman I go to church with. I shared on during a men's group, kind of spontaneous, rich dad, poor dad, 4 quadrants, right? I shared already the rich dad, poor dad quadrants with you. And I shared that with him. And afterwards, he came up. He's like, hey, what you were talking about from the 4 quadrants, like you were speaking to me, man. And I said, hey, thanks for sharing that. Let's grab a coffee in the near future, my treat. And we met at a local Starbucks, and I got to hear what was in his heart. And he shared with me, he was like, Chris, my family and I have been dreaming. I'm considering these options. And he shared that that he's a teacher. And, when it comes to coaching and consulting others, a lot of times how we add value is help them figure out the options, right? If they only have one choice, they don't have a choice. If they have 2 choices, that now they have a dilemma, right? They're at a crossroads. Did they go right or left? But if we can help people to get to 3 or 4 options, now they actually are empowered. They have a choice and they're empowered to make a decision at that point. So when he said, I'm thinking about A or B, I said, hey, tell me what else have you considered? Like, what are you good at? What do you love doing? He shared with me that he's into music. I mean, no surprise, he's a worship pastor. And I asked him, I said, have you ever considered I threw out just an idea of like consulting people online, teaching them to play the piano or something. He's like, no, I don't think I'd be into that. I said, well, what else have you considered? You know what we landed on? He shared with me that he's considered being a DJ. And I'm like, And as we're talking about the income goal that he and his family have, we were able to, one of the options would be working an additional, it was weekends, both weekends, which would be his only off days, if I remember right. And then working 2 nights a week, which would be away from his family. So 4 days away from his family, 8, 16, that's 32 hours. You know what he landed on? Being a DJ. He said, you know what, Chris? I think I might like to be a DJ. And he said that there's a guy that it's a DJ and he's going to talk to him. And I said, that sounds like a great idea, right? Success leaves clues. We don't have to learn everything the hard way. We could learn from others, right? Stand on the shoulders of giants, that type of thinking. So we met the following week. He goes, Chris, I met with that guy, and he said that I could actually shadow him. He has a gig coming up, and he's going to let me help him and spend that evening with him. I think he was doing a wedding or something like that. And I said, well, this sounds like a great idea. And I meet with him again the following week. And he goes, I said, well, how'd it go? He goes, I loved it. And he goes, not only did I love it, the guy actually paid me to help him. And he was like, it was a win-win. I said, well, what are you thinking? He said, I think I want to do that. So with him, here's the real win. Because the real value is time, right? Some people say money doesn't grow on trees, and yet it's paper, right? That's interesting. So the real value there is like, he was able to get time back with his family and move towards that income goal. Matter of fact, he just texted me. The reason I was thinking about him is because last week he texted me and he goes, Chris, I just want to let you know I got another gig lined up. And I think he said it was a wedding, if I remember right, towards the end of the year. I said, man, that is awesome. Nice work. How many more of those do you desire, right? So the point is one of the things I love about entrepreneurship is you could build a life intentionally. Like what if for you, you could start buying back your time, which is biblical. The Bible says, redeem your time for the days are evil. The first part of that, what that means is to buy back your time. So one of the things I love about entrepreneurship is it could break that cycle of trading dollars for hours. And I know some people may push back and say, well, Chris, really you're self-employed if you're doing that thing for yourself. I get that, but you're probably going to make some more money doing it and you're going to have more of your time back. Chances are. So if you've hung in here this long, I want to thank you. I also would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. And also I would give you an invite to send me a message and say, Chris, I watched it to the end and let me know where you're at. I would love to hear from you on this one. If you're considering the path of entrepreneurship, the path that could be freedom, the path that could be the dream that you've always desired. And I'm reminded that one of my mentors, Gary Keller, in his book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, he starts in the beginning talking about the mindset. I'm going to end with this. Because a lot of times people say, Chris, is being an entrepreneur for me? Do you think I have what it takes? And I'm reminded, Gary Keller in his book, he says this, it's not about the chosen few, but it's about the few that choose. And I'm wondering what you're going to choose. And I want to answer that question I promised to answer at the beginning. Should you quit your 9-to-5 job? Well, unfortunately, it depends. There's no yes or no on that one. Here's what I would tell you though on that one. Depending on the season of life you're in, I would recommend having a nest egg financially, meaning that you have 6 months in the reserves before you put in that notice. That's probably not a bad idea, or 6 months or more. I'll leave it at that. And then also, I'll tell you what, nothing is more motivating to building your business, to building that opportunity you dream of, than going into a place that you're ready to move on from. That doesn't minimize the gratitude that you feel and the gratitude that you have in your heart for that opportunity. But you ever had that feeling like there's been a shift on the inside where you know that you're done, it's time to move on? That's the feeling I'm talking about. So to answer the question clearly, should you quit your job or not? It depends. Be financially responsible. Pray about it. If you have questions, send me a message. I'm here for you, and I appreciate you a ton. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe and then share this with somebody else, and maybe with that other person. If you know somebody that's considering entrepreneurship, what would it look like for both of you guys to watch this video, take notes on it, and then meet up over coffee like that gentleman that I go to church with did? And what if you guys use this as the launching pad to talk about entrepreneurship together? We'll see you later.